Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel. At 3:06 a.m., my bedroom window shook, not from wind, but from the kind of silence that hums louder than noise. My dog, Milo, lifted his head, blinked once, and went back to sleep. I wish I could have done the same. Instead, I was sitting on the edge of the bed, staring at my phone screen, blank. No alerts, no texts, no anything, and feeling like a ghost in my own house. Not dead, just invisible. The stupidest part, I wasn't even trying to catch her. I wasn't going through messages or checking her location or anything like that. I was literally just trying to send her a link to that dumb article about pigeons using public transit. She loves that weird animal stuff. But when I hit share and tapped her contact, I got a notification. Recipient is on Do Not Disturb. At first, I figured it was some system thing, maybe an update, maybe a glitch. So I checked my own settings, then hers. Then I realized I wasn't on some automatic night mode. I was manually set to Do Not Disturb. Only me, no one else. I wasn't silenced by mistake. I was muted on purpose. And I know what people will say, that it's not a big deal, that maybe she just wanted uninterrupted sleep. Except she wasn't asleep. She wasn't in the room. Her pillow was cold. I don't even remember getting out of bed. I just remember my hands shaking as I walked barefoot across the hallway, stepping over laundry she said she'd fold 2 days ago. Our guest room door was cracked. The blue light of her iPad flickered against the wall. She was in there whispering, laughing, her voice soft and sweet, like it used to be when she spoke to me. Yeah, he doesn't know. It's kind of hilarious. I didn't hear the rest. I backed away. My name is Franklin. I'm 45. I fix vintage jukeboxes for a living. I also cry quietly in the shower and pretend it's the water hitting my face. I didn't confront her. I didn't scream or break anything or barge in demanding answers. Instead, I walked into the kitchen, my refuge, the only place in the house that still felt mine. At 3:41 a.m., I made toast I didn't eat. By 7:50 a.m., I was logged into our joint bank account. By 9 a.m., every dollar was in my name. Savings, emergency fund, vacation stash, all of it gone from her reach, just like I'd been erased from hers. I didn't do it to be cruel. I did it because I needed to feel like I existed again, that I mattered, that I could still move something, even if it was just money. She didn't notice. She came downstairs at 9:10 a.m., smelling like lavender and someone else's cologne. She smiled, told me I looked pale, said she was off to yoga. I nodded. But the thing about silence is once you finally hear the truth behind it, it's deafening. And I was just starting to hear everything. She didn't say anything about the account. Not that morning, not the next. I watched her pay for a $6 oat milk latte with her own card and walk out of the cafe like the ground wouldn't dare question her steps. I watched from across the street. Pathetic, I know. I felt like a rejected extra in a movie she was starring in, one I used to co-write. It's strange, really. I'd expected something dramatic when I moved the money. A call, a text, maybe a, "Did you touch our account with that clip tone she uses when I mess up laundry?" But nothing. She didn't even flinch. That terrified me more than any confrontation could have. So I started digging. Not into her phone, that was locked tighter than a bank vault now, but into our patterns, into what I'd missed while being the guy who remembered trash day and overpaid the electric bill. Turns out Marlene had been very busy while I was organizing tax receipts and repairing old jukeboxes that no one wanted. Her consulting lunches happened almost daily now. Her dry cleaning doubled. She had a second gym membership. When I asked why she needed two, she laughed and said, "One's for yoga, once for Pilates. You wouldn't understand. She was right. I didn't. I also didn't understand why someone named Anthony Shift had Venmo'd her 3 times in a week, all with emojis, fire, lips, and a lock. I asked her once casually who Anthony was. She blinked, said, "Oh, that's from a group project I'm advising. Don't worry." I always did. But this time, I clicked on Anoni's profile. He wasn't in consulting. He was a personal trainer, the same one she started seeing 2 months ago at the newer gym because the other one stopped challenging her. I sat on our couch that night, staring at my reflection in the black TV screen. I looked like someone waiting for a permission slip to feel betrayed, and still, I did nothing. No shouting, no accusation. Instead, I refilled her water bottle, washed her favorite hoodie, made her tea. Because when your self-worth is slowly eroded by whispered lies and weaponized charm, you don't fight. You shrink. You apologize for existing too loudly. That's what I'd become. A background character to my own collapse. But something changed the next morning. Not because she said anything, not because she confessed, because of what she left behind. And what I found buried in the Notes app of an old tablet we both forgot we owned was a journal entry she never meant for me to see. It was dated 3 weeks ago, and it started with, "He wouldn't survive if I left, but I don't love him. I haven't in years." I must have read that journal entry 12 times, maybe more, not because I didn't believe it, but because I kept hoping I'd misread something, maybe swapped a word, or misunderstood the tone. But every time my eyes scanned the same line, it cut deeper. He wouldn't survive if I left, but I don't love him. I haven't in years. That wasn't the kind of thing you write in passing. That was the kind of sentence you carve when you're already halfway gone. The note went on to describe how she felt boxed in, unseen, and tethered to comfort disguised as love. She said I was good, but not exciting, that I was reliable, but emotionally boring. And then came the worst part. She said being with me felt like listening to static when you know there's music playing on another channel. I sat on the floor with the tablet in my hands like it was radioactive. I didn't cry. I didn't even blink. It's like my emotions froze under the weight of a truth that had clearly lived in her longer than I'd known. She'd been checked out for years, and I was too wrapped up in being dependable to notice I was living next to a stranger who had already packed up emotionally. The entry was dated 3 days after our last anniversary. That night, I made her dinner, bought her the perfume she used to love, and gave her a card I wrote by hand. She'd smiled, kissed me, and said, "You're the best thing that ever happened to me." And I believed her. I clung to that line like a fool hugging a life raft that's already been punctured. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I needed more than a journal entry. I needed certainty, because if I was going to face this, I couldn't crumble mid-con conversation. So, I did something I'm not proud of. I started tracking her. She left her iCloud logged into that same tablet, and I accessed her location history. I told myself it was just to confirm what I already knew. The next afternoon, she told me she had a late client meeting across town. She left around 4:00 p.m., dressed casually, no makeup, said it was a strategy session. Her location pinged about 30 minutes later, nowhere near an office, but in a quiet suburban neighborhood on the east side of town, a place we'd never been together. I stared at that dot on the map for a long time, wondering what I'd see if I drove over there. But I didn't. I couldn't. Instead, I sat in our dim kitchen and waited. She came back around 8 p.m., humming some song like she'd just come from a spa retreat. She smelled faintly of someone else's cologne again. When I asked how the meeting went, She smiled like nothing in the world was wrong and said, "Productive, long, but we made progress." I nodded. I asked if she was hungry. She said she already ate. I was going to let it go. I really was. But then I asked something I didn't plan to ask. "Did Anthony drive you?" She froze only for a second, but I caught it. Then she laughed. "What? No, of course not. Why would you ask that?" My heart pounded. I stared at her like I was trying to see past the shape of her face and into the truth. I wanted to believe her. I wanted her to be right, but I already knew she wasn't. I had screenshots, Vimo transactions, locations, the journal, but none of that hurt as much as what she said next, trying to cover her tracks. "You really should talk to someone, Franklin. This paranoia isn't healthy." After she told me I needed help, like I was the one losing touch with reality, something inside me collapsed. And I don't mean some dramatic emotional breakdown. I mean something quiet and permanent, like a floorboard giving out in the middle of the night. I nodded like a coward. I said nothing. I even made her tea afterward, chamomile with a little honey, the same way she used to make it for me when I had migraines. But she didn't notice that detail. She just scrolled her phone and smiled at something that clearly wasn't me. I didn't sleep that night. Again, I just sat on the couch replaying every conversation, every errand, every fake smile from the last 6 months, like an investigator going through crime scene footage. And the worst part wasn't the lie she told me. It was how well she delivered them. She was flawless, effortless. Even the tone of her voice when she denied knowing Anthony had sounded warm and confused, like I'd asked if she'd ever met a giraffe named Bob. The next morning, I checked the bank account. She still hadn't noticed the money was gone. Or maybe she had and just didn't care enough to ask. That possibility stung worse. I didn't matter to her, not as a husband, not even as a financial resource. I was just noise in the background of her new life. That's when I remembered something from the journal entry. She wrote about taking steps to be free by spring. It was late March. Suddenly, everything felt like a countdown, and I was the only one without the script. Later that afternoon, she left for another one of her stretch classes, but her tablet was still plugged into the charger in the living room. Same one I'd found the journal on. I hesitated, genuinely hesitated, but then I opened it. Not out of paranoia, out of instinct. There was a new note. This one was short. "Meeting the realtor tomorrow. If he signs fast, I'm keeping the condo." I felt sick. We own this place together. I'd put in the down payment. I was the one who'd patched the wall when the ceiling leaked, who repainted the cabinets, who installed every smart device she later locked me out of. And now, she was planning to sell it out from under me. I didn't even know what "if he signs fast" meant. Was that about the realtor or some guy she was seeing? I couldn't keep up anymore. When she came home later that night, she was glowing. Her hair was tied up, cheeks flushed, eyes sparkling like she'd been laughing all day. She kissed me on the cheek like it was muscle memory and said, "Let's watch something funny tonight." I need to laugh. I wanted to scream. I wanted to grab her and demand an explanation for every lie. But instead, I nodded, picked a sitcom we'd seen a dozen times, and sat beside her like a well-trained ghost. The entire episode played without either of us laughing once. She fell asleep halfway through, and I stared at her wondering how many lies can fit inside one sleeping body. Tomorrow she was meeting the realtor, and I was done waiting for the collapse to finish me off. By morning, I had made up my mind. I wasn't going to sit around like furniture while she sold the life we built together behind my back. If she was going to treat me like an accessory, then I'd become the sharpest one in the drawer. I called my old friend Roy. We hadn't talked in a while. Not since he moved out of state, but he was a real estate attorney who owed me a favor from a time I'd helped him move during a snowstorm. He picked up immediately. I told him everything. Not the dramatic parts, not the heartbreak, just the facts. Joint ownership, no divorce filed, no listing agreements I'd signed. He said what I hoped to hear. She can't sell anything without your signature. Not legally. The relief was momentary. It evaporated the second she walked into the kitchen, like everything was normal, and poured herself the last of the coffee without asking if I wanted any. She had that annoying bounce in her step, the one she used to get before a spa day or a beach trip. I could smell her citrus perfume from across the room. Her makeup was lighter than usual, natural, confident. She looked like someone preparing to impress. "You have any plans today?" she asked casually, eyes on her phone. "Not really," I said, keeping my voice even. She nodded. "Cool. I might be home late, meeting a client, and then grabbing dinner." That word again, client. I wanted to ask if her client would be paying the dinner bill or if she'd be using our joint credit card, which she didn't know was now also frozen. But I didn't. I just smiled and said, "Hope it goes well." She kissed me on the forehead, grabbed her tote bag, and walked out, like she wasn't about to illegally offload half of everything we owned. I followed from a distance. I'd borrowed my brother's car the night before, claiming mine needed work. She didn't suspect a thing. Her car pulled up to an office complex on the edge of town. Not a real estate office, a private suite. I parked across the street, heart pounding so loud I thought it might give me away. 30 minutes passed. Then I saw them. She stepped out with a man. Not Anthony. This guy was older, dressed sharp, holding a black leather folder. She leaned in close, her hand brushing his chest. They laughed. Then she signed something on a clipboard he handed her. My stomach flipped. I didn't wait for them to leave. I snapped a photo from the car. Then I sent it to Roy. 10 minutes later, he called me. "Frank, whatever she signed wasn't a sale agreement. It's either a rental or a transfer of representation, but you're still protected unless she forges your name." That hadn't crossed my mind until then. Would she do that? Forge my name? The woman I married 10 years ago wouldn't have. But the woman I lived with now, the one who whispered lies while drinking tea I made. I wasn't so sure anymore. By the time she came home that night, I had already pulled every document with my name on it into a locked drawer, changed every password, called the bank again, just to make sure I was the only one with access. She walked in, humming a tune. "You're in a good mood," I said, testing her. She grinned. "Just a productive day." Then she sat down beside me on the couch like nothing had changed. But everything had, because for the first time in weeks, I was finally ahead of her. And the next thing I discovered would take this whole situation from betrayal to something darker, something I wasn't prepared for. The next morning started like the others, quiet, artificial, and polite. She acted like everything was fine. She even asked if I wanted eggs. That was new. For the past few weeks, she barely acknowledged my existence before noon. I told her no, and she shrugged, humming as she whisked something in the kitchen. I watched her trying to figure out what it was that made me feel like there was a stranger in my house wearing my wife's face. Same voice, same expressions, same tone, but none of it felt real anymore. Like someone memorized her role, but forgot the soul behind it. I needed air. I grabbed the trash bag on the way out. She smiled and said, "Thanks, babe." I think that was the moment I cracked. She still used the word babe as if we were still a team. As if she hadn't tried to sell the condo from under me, lied about meeting clients, and written in her secret digital diary that she didn't love me anymore, but I didn't say anything. I just nodded and walked out the door, except I didn't take the trash to the bin. I set the bag in the garage and opened it. I didn't know what I was looking for. I just knew I needed proof. Real, tangible evidence of who she'd become when she thought I wasn't watching. Inside was mostly normal stuff. Empty yogurt cups, receipts, a cracked makeup compact. But at the very bottom, wrapped in a paper towel stained with lipstick and foundation, was something that made me freeze. A crumpled envelope addressed to a name I didn't recognize. Mara G. Same handwriting as hers. Inside was a card, a thank you card. Mara, thank you for introducing me to Paul. I owe you more than just coffee. You literally changed my life. He's everything I needed, but didn't know I could still have. I read it again. Paul, not Anthony, not even the guy from the office yesterday. Paul, another name, another man, another layer of deception. I sat in the garage for a long time. I tried to piece it together, but it was like trying to solve a puzzle while someone kept flipping the pieces over. Why was she writing thank you notes? Why was she so confident, so careless to throw it out without shredding it? Did she think I was that blind? Or did she want me to find it? I tucked the card into my jacket pocket and walked the trash to the curb. My hands were shaking, but I looked calm. I had to. I couldn't let her see the storm building inside me until I knew what direction it was heading. When I came back inside, she was on the phone. She quickly ended the call when she saw me. I pretended not to notice. She asked if I wanted to go out for lunch. Another first. I said yes. We went to a local diner, sat in a booth we used to love. She laughed at the waitress's jokes, complimented the food, and asked me about work. It was surreal, like having dinner with someone who'd rehearsed the role of loving wife the night before. I played along, nodding, smiling when needed, but inside my head, I was already planning. Later that night, after she fell asleep, I searched her closet. I know it sounds pathetic, but I had to. I needed to know what I was up against. I found a second phone, cheap, prepaid, hidden inside a shoebox beneath old scarves. My chest went tight. I powered it on. No lock screen. The messages loaded quickly. There he was, Paul, and what he sent her last made my blood run cold. So, he still has no idea. When's the move-in date? Move-in date. She wasn't just planning to leave me, she was planning to disappear with him. I sat there with that burner phone in my hand for what felt like an hour. The glow of the screen was the only light in the room. I scrolled through their messages one by one, trying to make sense of the timeline. The first text from Paul was over 4 months ago. That meant the affair had been running longer than I suspected, long before the Do Not Disturb incident. He wasn't just some fling or emotional escape. He was part of her long-term plan. The more I read, the more I realized she had been preparing to walk out of my life like someone quietly leaving a hotel room. Calm, rehearsed, invisible. There were messages about apartments, ones she'd already visited, furniture orders, moving dates, even a conversation about what neighborhood felt safer for their future. Their future. The words made my stomach twist. There was also a note about my unpredictability, saying she needed to make the exit clean before I became suspicious. She wrote that I was too dependent, too fragile, and that I wouldn't survive without her. She wasn't wrong about one thing. I was fragile, but not in the way she thought. My weakness wasn't emotional, it was moral, because in that moment, I didn't want justice or peace. I wanted her to feel what I felt when I realized my marriage was a performance and I was just the prop. I turned off the phone and placed it exactly where I found it. I couldn't let her know I knew. Not yet. The next day, she acted as if the universe was perfectly balanced. She wore a bright yellow dress, brewed her favorite coffee, and even played the same playlist we used to listen to on road trips. It would have been beautiful if it hadn't felt like the soundtrack to my own funeral. Around noon, she left for her supposed work meeting, and I followed again. This time, I didn't stay across the street. I parked 2 blocks away and walked. Her car was already there, parked in front of a beige townhouse with "For Rent" taped to the window, except the sign had been crossed out and replaced with "Rented." I stood behind a fence, watching her laugh as she handed a man a folder. Paul, tall, clean-cut, the kind of guy who probably still ironed his socks. They hugged, and I felt something shift inside me. I wasn't angry anymore, just hollow. A man emptied out of everything that used to make him human. When she went inside with him, I walked away. My hands were trembling, but my mind was strangely calm. That night she came home humming again, that same fake piece dripping from her voice. I pretended to be half asleep on the couch. She looked at me for a moment, maybe feeling a trace of guilt, maybe wondering how much longer she had to fake this act. She whispered, "Good night," and disappeared into the bedroom. I didn't answer. I just stared at the ceiling, counting the seconds between her footsteps. Tomorrow she'd think she was 1 step away from freedom. But I'd already decided the next morning, before she could pack another lie, I was going to end this illusion once and for all. Not with shouting, not with revenge, but with something she'd never expect. By the time she woke up, everything she thought was hers would already be gone. She woke up late. I was already dressed, the car packed, and the condo eerily silent. No music, no coffee brewing, no footsteps overhead, just sunlight hitting the floor and the weight of everything she never said hanging in the air when she walked into the kitchen in her robe, rubbing her eyes. She looked confused, almost irritated, like I'd interrupted a routine she expected to run uninterrupted. She asked why I was dressed. I smiled calmly and said, "Check the bedroom." She didn't move at first. Then something must have clicked because her bare feet slid quickly down the hall. A minute later, I heard drawers opening, the closet door creaking, hangers scraping the metal rod. She came back with panic all over her face. "Where are your things?" "I left most of them," I said, zipping up my jacket. "I only took what was mine." "You're being dramatic," she scoffed, arms crossed. "You're moving in with Paul," I said flatly. She froze. Her lips parted slightly, and for a split second, I saw a real fear. Then came the performance. "Who told you that?" "That's ridiculous." "You did," I replied, holding up the burner phone. She palled. "You went through my stuff. You planned a whole new life without telling me. I figured I was already a ghost, so why not haunt the truth a little?" She stared at me, eyes searching for leverage she no longer had. "You're overreacting. I wasn't going to leave until I figured everything out. But you already rented a place. I said you had a move-in date. You had furniture picked out. You wrote that I wouldn't survive without you. But I already have." Her jaw tightened. I expected yelling. Tears. Apologies, maybe. But she just stood there, defeated in silence, like she realized the final scene hadn't gone the way she rehearsed it. "I transferred the condo into my name," I continued. "Legally, Roy handled it. The money in our joint accounts, that's gone. I left you a portion in a new account. Fair is fair. The rest stays with me." "You can't do that." "I already did." She laughed bitterly, but it cracked in the middle. "Wow. So now you're the one disappearing." "No," I said, stepping toward the door. "I'm just finally waking up." I left before she could respond. 3 months have passed. I sleep better. I eat without that heaviness in my throat. I don't flinch when my phone buzzes in the middle of the night. And you know what the weirdest part is? I'm not angry anymore. I'm grateful because when she put me on Do Not Disturb, she gave me a gift. She made me listen to myself, to the silence, to the signs I'd ignored for far too long. I don't need revenge. I needed peace, and I found it without her. What moment in this story shocked you the most? Was it the second phone, the move-in plan, or something else entirely? Let us know in the comments. And if you've ever been silenced in a relationship, tell us how you found your voice again. You're watching Reddit Confessions, where the truth always gets heard.